Hi Dennis, thanks so much for purchasing a full birth chart reading from me, Aphrodite, from Aphrodite.com. Let's go ahead and get started. So, Ascendant is the first thing people see and the mask you wear in public. And your Ascendant is sitting directly in Leo. So, first and foremost, Leo ascendants are always seen as attractive, usually physically attractive, but what happens with the Leo ascendant is that they're very likable people and they draw people to them. There's a bit of magnetism. They always stand out, they're always a little bit more bold than other people, and they treat people like family when they first meet them. You know, they're someone who really wants to get to know people and really connect. So when we see the Ascendant in Leo, these people are usually very, very popular once they put themselves to something or apply themselves to something. They are usually people that naturally stand out. You know, sometimes they can be a little bit boastful or cocky if they're, frustrated. But ultimately, it's a really good placement. They're usually very anal about their hair. And they want to make sure that they look good because to them, usually looking good is feeling good. I've seen a lot of Leo ascendants that don't take care of themselves, and they are usually very regretful of that once they start. So it's very important for you to express yourself physically in order for you to kind of have a clear mind, body, and soul. Now, the sun is your sense of ego and identity. And when we have the sun in Taurus, these people are very loyal, right? Taurus is loyal to a fault, and they're very stubborn. If they say something, they're probably not going to change, and they're very, very much routine-based. If a Taurus is going to do something, they're going to do it until they feel like they shouldn't. And there's kind of no way to persuade them. That's great because it means that they're consistent, right? And they're able to consistently do the things that they want to do. But sometimes it's hard to get in there because we do see Taurus as someone that builds up a lot of walls and builds up a lot of things around them in order to protect themselves. Now, they will protect the people that they care about, but the problem is that they're also protecting themselves. So we see them as being naturally a little bit too guarded. And sometimes they have to be a little bit more open to the possibility of people changing or things changing because they hate change. That's something that they fear. And they also fear the change in other people, which causes a lot of insecurities. Now, Taurus is definitely a hard worker. However, they are very on and off, meaning when they work really hard, they work really hard. And when they're lazy, they're really fucking lazy. Like, they have their streaks where they're just lazy as fuck and laziness is their lifestyle. Or they're like workhorse. Okay, there's kind of no in between with them, and they switch between the moods. Now, Taurus does love to indulge. They're going to love food. They're going to love money. Taurus rules money. They like to make money, like to earn money, like to spend money. They will like materialistic things, not in a superficial way, but in a, I worked hard for this, I earned it, so I'm going to have it. And a lot of times the reward is kind of what keeps them going in life. They need that they need to see and touch tangibly the results of their hard work. The efforts of their labor needs to be rewarded. They need that sort of like tangible thing, whether it be a vacation, a trip, or an item. It's very important for them to see, this is what I was able to generate, this is what I was able to do. Another thing about Taurus is that they're sometimes a little bit difficult to initiate. Now, you do have the the Ascendant in Leo, which is going to help you initiate a little bit better than normal Taurus. But just know that sometimes accepting help is something that you're going to have to learn to do. And we'll get into that a little bit more with your North Node, because Taurus likes to do things on their own. And so you're going to kind of have to learn to be a little bit more open to help. Now, your sun is sitting in the 9th house. So the 9th house is a house of higher learning and travel. Okay, so when we see the sun in the 9th house, these people are very, very, very independent, okay, and very opinionated. They're very, very much like, I march the beat of my own drum and I do what I want to do, which is great. But not only are we going to have to get into your North Node in a little bit, okay, about working with others, but when your sun's in the 9th house, sometimes these people can get a little bit specific because it ends up being a very philosophical placement. It's like, you're independent, unique. And a lot of times they learn a lot about one subject. They become very, very hyper-focused on one subject. So a lot of people with this placement go into get a very good education because it's important for them to kind of be an expert. And you do need to be careful because sometimes this placement can accidentally go into a know-it-all zone, just for the simple fact that they sometimes feel insecure if they don't know a lot about something, and they want to learn, but sometimes they don't want to be seen as someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. That would be embarrassing, and it would also trigger your ascendant. So it's just very important for you to be conscious about that. Also, just know that sometimes you will be a little bit more blunt than normal with this placement, because it's a Sagittarius placement. And this is hard. I'm not going to lie to you, because Sagittarius, 9th house, it's going to change. Things are going to change constantly for you. And your Taurus nature is going to be like, why can't this be consistent? You're going to have to learn that there's consistency and inconsistency. Okay, because you're going to feel frustrated that your routine is constantly broken, but it's part of your life's journey to embrace that. Now, Moon is your emotions, and Moon is sitting in Gemini. So, I'm not going to lie, this placement is a bit rough. The reason why I say that is because it's very difficult for people to understand the Moon in Gemini in this day and age, okay? As an Aries Moon myself, I understand them, but it's difficult because Moon in Gemini, okay, thinks their emotions rather than feels them. That doesn't mean you don't also feel them. It just means that the way you process them is through thinking first. Okay, so it's almost computerized where it's like, okay, I'm sad. Why am I sad? Okay, beep, 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 and then it's like gets sad. And a lot of times people will feel like you're inconsistent with your emotions. People will feel like you're insensitive. People will feel like you don't get it, and people will feel like they don't feel you. They're not feeling the empathy. They're not feeling the sympathy because you're thinking it. Okay, and you have to speak it too. Moon in Gemini needs to rant, need to get their emotions out, they need to talk about it, need to write about it, journal about it, whatever they're going to do, but they need to get it out via verbal communication or thought process. Usually, I always tell them, get a good person you can rant to, it'll help you. But the problem with the Moon in Gemini is that they're emotional, okay? They're still humans, so it's frustrating because you'll see the Moon in Gemini be like, yeah, I do care. And they'll be like, well, how do you show it? And you'll be like, I don't know. And that's where the Moon in Gemini has to kind of pick up the slack and be like, listen, I speak my emotions. I talk them. I express them through communication rather than through a huge emotional outburst all the time. And in fact, Moon in Gemini is going to get annoyed. If someone's constantly crying and whining and pouting, they're like, get the fuck over it. Stop. Do something about it. What can we do about it? Stop. It would annoy them. Moon in Gemini wants to keep things light and airy, especially the emotions. They want to have a good time. They love to hang out with people, go for an experience, an adventure together. They love to laugh, and they might even laugh at inappropriate jokes. They'll probably crack a lot of jokes because a lot of Moon in Gemini are funny. They'll probably crack a lot of witty jokes and a lot of things like that on someone, and take the piss out of them or whatever the saying is. I don't know the exact saying. Okay. And the other person will, if the other person is receptive to it, they'll love it. They'll be like, yeah, back and forth. However, if the person is a little bit hypersensitive, especially if they're Moon in Cancer, the Gemini is going to come across a little bit like a bully because the Gemini is going to be joking and laughing, and they're going to be expecting the Cancer to do the same to them, and then they don't. They just get offended. So it's very difficult sometimes for the Moon in Gemini to feel like they're expressing themselves properly because they're a little bit like, listen, I just want to have a good time. I just want to go back and forth, banter, it's fun for me. Like, I don't want to take things super serious all the time. And so sometimes it's hard when a more sensitive, emotionally charged moon placement. Like I said before, I have an Aries moon, so I know a lot of Gemini moons, and we usually get along really well because we're able to have fun, make fun of each other, laugh, no one's ever offended, and it's a great time, which to you would be like amazing, and it's a great experience. But sometimes people need a little bit more of emotion, and you have to be careful because you can sometimes come across as a bit robotic. However, with the Moon in Gemini, you are going to compartmentalize your emotions. You're going to put it in a box, save it for a rainy day, and put it on the shelf. That doesn't work because once that emotion falls off the shelf, you have an emotional outburst and nobody knows where it came from because you saved it from a rainy day. Okay, so be careful about that. It's much different than bottling up, okay, because it's on that fucking shelf and that shelf eventually breaks. Now, the Moon in Gemini is usually addicted to gadgets, gizmos, computers, the internet. Like, they have a thirst for knowledge. They want to learn, and they want to express themselves. And they like to talk about a lot of different subjects. So it's very important for them to be mentally stimulated in any connection that they have with anyone or anything. If they're not smart, if they're not funny, if they're not able to sort of enlighten you or enrich you in some way, you're probably bored and on to the next. Now, your Moon is sitting in your 10th house. So, here's a great placement because it's going to soften a little tiny bit of this Gemini placement because sometimes when you get yourself in a vulnerable position, you will wear your emotions on your sleeve sometimes. Okay, so that's good because people will see this eventually. However, with the 10th house moon, the issue then comes from you wanting to deny that your emotions exist and put them down, because it is Capricorn energy, and sometimes Capricorn just wants to provide be a security, stability for everyone around them, and sometimes they feel like emotions just, they need to be put down. Especially Gemini moons sometimes are like, they make the joke that Gemini moons think that emotions are for ugly people, and with Capricorn here, because it's in your 10th house, traditionally ruled by Capricorn, it's like, I want to push it down. I want to deny that it exists. I don't want anyone to feel this. I don't want anyone to see this. So be careful about that, because that will come across to other people. They will see that, and they'll feel like maybe you're being cold when you don't mean to be. However, with this moon in the 10th house, there's two things that it means. One, okay, for your career, you have to be emotionally invested. Okay, if you're not emotionally invested in your career and you don't see yourself emotionally fulfilled, you will move on. And two, you are going to be someone who nurtures other people in career. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you become a mentor-mentee sort of relationship or anything like that, or teaching, other people things and stuff like that. You're going to be a nurturer with moon in the 10th house for your career. So that's good because, it'll be seen as someone who's serious, stern, but can also kind of give advice and help other people. It's a very powerful placement, very tough love oriented, and someone who maybe not is always super emotional, but will show that they're there and show that they're capable of helping and providing, which is very important as well. So, good. Mercury is communication. So Mercury is sitting in Taurus. Now, here's the problem with Mercury and Taurus. They usually have beautiful voices, usually very pleasant to hear, because Taurus it rules the throat, and it's also ruled by Venus. But when we see Mercury and Taurus, these people sometimes have a hard time being understood, because for them, their articulation is not always the best. Sometimes they stutter, or they are afraid to say something, or when they say something, they're just a little bit not sure if it's the right way. Sometimes their mind gets too quick, like especially with your moon in Gemini. Sometimes your mind will go faster than your mouth can handle. So you'll be thinking a million things, but you only say every third sentence. Stuff like that will happen. Taurus, Mercury sometimes just has a hard time putting everything together. So I always tell my Mercury and Taurus, plan what you say before you say it. Going in and winging things is usually what we see Mercury and Gemini doing. Now, again, you have that moon in Gemini, so you're going to want to wing things, but the problem is with Mercury and Taurus, you need to go and meet them meet in the middle. Half wing, half planned. If you have some form of structure before you say something or do something, it'll be better. And these people are usually better when they're like, you know what, let me think about this, formulate my opinion, and then get back to you. Because sometimes they can come across as stubborn, stuck in their ways, not wanting to get a simple solution, feeling frustrated, and things like that. Also, sometimes Mercury and Taurus is very practical. So when it comes to solutions, sometimes they go for the most practical, easy solution. And sometimes they don't always challenge themselves when they need to. Now, Mercury and Taurus is definitely someone who's pretty loyal when it comes to, communication, meaning probably not going to see a lot of messiness coming from them. Now, you still have that moon in Gemini, so you're not going to be opposed to listening. But with the Mercury and Taurus, I'd be shocked if you were, telling people everyone's business, or like really pretty much going to keep things to yourself. Now, your Mercury is also in the 9th house. So understand this. 9th house is Sagittarian energy. So sometimes you won't say anything at all. Okay? And sometimes you'll be a little bit like, aloof. Your communication style is going to be a little bit hot and cold with Mercury in the 9th house. Sometimes you're not going to always give people the information that they need. So sometimes people will feel like you leave them out of the loop. And then when they ask you, you'll be very blunt. Like, oh yeah, I want to say this and I want to say that. But like sometimes you just keep things to yourself because it's a very independent nature. So it's kind of just like, Also be careful because, listen, Mercury in the 9th house, very intelligent. You are very intelligent. I mean, you have a lot of intelligent placements. But be careful because that Mercury in the 9th house, sometimes when we see this placement, these people, like I said before, they're very, very smart and usually end up getting, at least a decent education. Sometimes that can become their identity, which you need to be careful of, because if that becomes your identity, you won't really connect with people, because people can't connect with a machine. Now, Venus is in Gemini. So Venus is love, beauty, and relationship. And when we see Venus in Gemini, these people are attracted to intelligence. Okay? People need to be smart, funny, witty, playful, they need banter, they need to be very, 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 very unique and interesting. Like, not in a different way, but in a way where it's like, huh, I don't know if I've ever seen someone like you before. Not just like physically, like their whole mentality. And when Venus is in Gemini, I'm not gonna lie, you do have a little bit of a bigger, better deal. Meaning sometimes it's hard for them to commit because they're like, ooh, but this one, ooh, but this one. And they like to have a little different taste of every flavor. Okay. However, with your Venus being in the 10th house, you're gonna find your partner through career, or your partner will eventually be seen as public. What that means is, when we see the Venus in the 10th house, people are interested in who you're dating or who you're with, and they'll always ask. Sometimes your partner is a public figure, sometimes your partner is someone who people are just interested in, sometimes you're interested in. No matter what it does, the 10th house is a public house. So when Venus is sitting here, somehow the public is involved in your relationship, whether it's, and it's career too, so whether it's, meeting someone through career, or, everyone's interested and always poking their nose in it, or one person is seen in the public eye, whatever the case may be, it's going to manifest in one of those ways. And I'm also going to tell you that when we see the Venus in the 10th house, a lot of times partner is a little bit older, at least a little bit more mature. And when we see Venus in the 10th house, these people also need to be careful, because you will probably make a lot of money in your lifetime, okay? Because Venus does represent money a little bit, and it's in the 10th house of career. And you need to be careful about what you do with that. As well as understand that with Venus in Capricorn, because it's in the 10th house, so it would be like a mini Venus in Capricorn, but whatever, Venus in 10th house. It's very important for you to be attracted to someone who's very goal-oriented and driven and serious, and you'll probably find yourself in a very protector-like vibe. Now, Mars is passion, sex, aggression. Now, Mars is in Aries. So, first and foremost, you got a problem here, okay? Because Mars, okay, when it's upset, is very impulsive, okay, and aggressive. Okay, so when we see Mars in Aries, these people are going to be a little bit more a leader, okay? And the problem is that if Mars is in Aries, they steer the pack wherever they feel it needs to go, okay? And if you piss them off, that might be against you. Mars in Aries loves a challenge. They love a chase, okay? And they are very, very, very dominant when they need to be. And that sometimes comes across as impulsive childishness. Mars and Aries, when they're pissed off, they do have temper tantrums. They do lash out sometimes. But when they're super angry, they have their reaction, and then they're over it, and they forget it, which is good. It's just, you're still a Taurus. So sometimes, even though you let it go, it's only going to take one little thing for you to reignite that thing, and then it's going to come across as a grudge. So be careful about that, because this could be an ignite, reignite, 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 vicious cycle. Now, when it comes to your passions, very much act first, think second. You're just going to dive right in, bounce around, courageous, brave, may not be always the nicest. You might be a little bit messy. You might bump into other people, step on others' toes, because you're just like, I don't want to do this. Run right in and do everything crazy. But ultimately, they usually end up getting their shit done. May not always be in the nicest, best way, in the most clean, put together way. It's probably very messy, and there's a lot of mistakes down the road. But they still usually end up doing what they want to do. And they're not afraid to do it first either. In fact, they love that. And they're very competitive. It's a very competitive placement. But be careful, because Mars and Aries, when they're super angry, can be physically aggressive. So they have to be careful about that as well. And they definitely need an outlet, especially one of their passions, to release that extra energy. I always tell my Mars and Aries, you guys better have some form of physical aggression, physical exertion, to get your energy out. Otherwise, you're going to be restless and bouncing all over the walls. When we see Mars and Aries, these people are pretty dominant, okay? So what that means is, when it comes to, sex and things like that, these people need to be in charge, okay? They're a bit bossy, okay? And they need to be in charge. I've seen a lot of Mars and Aries give up control, but the only way they give up control, or they give up the pants, is if they're in a form of like, I'm still kind of directing and telling you what to do. It's my terms on your terms. They always have a way of kind of just taking it there, but usually they're pretty dominant. When we see Mars and Aries, these people are chasers. You're going to have to chase, okay? And you're going to like chase. It's be very hot and cold, very hot and cold. And you're going to like a little bit of competition, a little bit of feistiness, a little bit of fighting, kind of get you going. And it's important for them to have that spark, that flame, you know, and you'll probably be drawn to someone who's feisty too. Definitely someone who doesn't like to give up. But with Mars and Aries, just be careful, okay? Because, you know, I've seen this placement manifest in a ton of different ways, but they all have the same exact common denominator, which is they lead whichever way that they feel needs to go. I mean, Shane Dawson has this placement, and while he may be a Cancer, who's super soft and sensitive, he's still a leader, okay? And he's still very dominant. Now, Mars is sitting in your 9th house as well. So, with 9th house, when you're super angry, you can sometimes say things that really aren't the nicest. You know, it's very like blunt, brutal honesty, truth that might really hurt people's feelings. And with Mars in the 9th house, these people, when especially sexually, they're drawn towards a change of environment. You know, sometimes a little bit of voyeurism, but it's more along the lines of, I want a different environment. And I'm not afraid to tell people, like, I want this, I want that, do this, do that. Also with Mars in 9th house, definitely someone that doesn't mind doing things on their own. And we'll get to your North Node, and you're going to be like, fuck. Okay, Jupiter is sitting in Capricorn. So Jupiter is luck and expansion wherever it's placed. When we see Jupiter in Capricorn, these people need to be goal-oriented. When you are goal-oriented, providing, you are constantly having a carrot on the stick that you are chasing and collecting, that's where you're going to unlock your luck in your chart. That's where things are going to be easy for you. You're supposed to be hitting your goalposts and then moving them. That's what brings you success in life. If you are not someone who is focusing on the bigger picture, if you are not someone who's focusing on your goals, you are going to be going against the grain. Sometimes people need to focus on being dramatic. Sometimes people need to focus on being, you know, realistic. Sometimes people need to focus on, you know, love or whatever it is. For you, it's about achievement, success, and power. Now, with Jupiter in the 5th house, you are supposed to be a little bit more dramatic than normal, and that means you are supposed to be a little bit more creative. But you also need to be careful, because when I see Jupiter in the 5th house, I'm telling you right now, the 5th house is a house of casual sex, and with Jupiter in the 5th house, you're going to have a lot of people interested in you. A Leo ascendant with a Jupiter in the 5th house, there's no freaking way that you don't have people that are interested in you all the time, okay? And if you didn't, you need to step out of the house, because there's no freaking way that this has not manifested in you having a lot of potential suitors. But be careful, because you could get kind of addicted to how easy sometimes things are and sort of fall off the wagon. I also see Jupiter in the 5th house as someone that likes to have a good time, and likes to make, you know, have the best out of life and make life fun. And that should be their overarching goal, is like, I want to make life fun. Life is meant to be, you know, an experience that I can enjoy forever. Well, not forever, but you know what I mean? I can enjoy as much as I can and have, as much fun as I can. Now, Saturn is a strict hard life lesson, and your Saturn's in your 8th house. So Saturn in the 8th house is a definite tough placement. You know, wherever Saturn is placed, it teaches us a big lesson, and wherever it's placed, it sucks, right? We're learning about this house. It teaches us hard life lessons. The 8th house is death, sex, and the occult. So a lot of times they say that Saturn in the 8th house has daddy issues, because for them, sometimes there's a loss of a parental figure. You know, and Saturn is still daddy, which, you know, does what daddy does, teaches us the lessons. So sometimes there's a loss of parental figure, or sometimes there's a feeling of not getting what we needed from, you know, parental figures. But the major overarching issue with Saturn in the 8th house is that people are always putting their bullshit on you. You'll feel like you have to do things for your family. You feel like you have to do things for your friend. You feel like you're always the one that has to be responsible, where everything is put on your shoulders. People project their bullshit on you, and you feel like you're always having to heal things and take on other people's stuff. Just because you can take on something, just because you can handle something, doesn't mean you should. Okay? You need to learn to say no sometimes to the shit that people put on you. Just because you're used to it, just because you had to do it when you were younger, just because you can, does not mean you should. We also see the Saturn in the 8th house dealing with really tough issues in terms of like feeling like they're not good enough, taking people's what they say at face value. Sometimes they have a lot of problems with trust, because they feel like they are A lot of people are trying to manipulate them or take advantage of them. There are definitely people that struggle with secrets and expressing that. And they're also sometimes having a lot of problems with like investigating, where, you know, it manifests in one of two ways. Either they're very naive and trust everyone, or they trust no one and they have to always like investigate every little thing. And so you're learning about all these things. Definitely see them a lot of times having bad experiences with the occult, or being afraid, or maybe sometimes it's a religious thing. Whatever the case may be, when we see Saturn in the 8th house, these people are learning about all those things, learning about, you know, what is real in life and what isn't, the philosophy of life, you know, how and why we exist. You know, they're learning not to be afraid of that. They're learning to experience, you know, what does death mean? What does death do for us? You know, why am I thinking negative? Why do people think negative? Like, why? You know, it's 8th house is Scorpio, and they ask the tough questions, and you're learning the answers to all the tough questions this lifetime. It's gonna make you a very strong person. People with Saturn in the 8th house are usually some of the toughest people you'll ever meet, and they usually have a lot to say and a lot to teach other people, because they've learned a lot. They're usually people who end up doing things on their own, very self-sufficient. Now, Uranus is unpredictability, and Neptune is illusion, disillusionment. These are in your 6th house. So look, 6th house, again, 6th house is a house of hard work, but it's also a house of routine, okay, and planning. And so when we see the 6th house with Uranus and Neptune, as much as you would like to be on a schedule, as much as you would like to be consistent, as much as you would love to always have things, you know, in order, things be clean and concise and precise, it ain't happening with Uranus and Neptune in the 6th house. Uranus is going to be like, oh yeah, everything's great. Well, here's a fucking curveball that's going to make you change all your plans at the last minute. Oh yeah, you like this routine? I'm changing it. Oh yeah, you like what you're doing? I'm changing it. Oh yeah, you like this? And they're just always going to throw you curveballs. So it's going to keep you on your toes. And part of your process and your journey this lifetime is to learn to be open towards change. Uranus is going to be like, listen, you might not like this change, and I know you love this, but guess what? Your routine's about to switch the fuck up. Your work is about to change. Your work environment is about to change. Your house, in terms of how you clean it, how you run it, how you experience it, that's going to change. All things are going to end up constantly changing. I'm telling you, the 6th house ends up affecting every aspect of your life. I'm telling you. I've done so many charts, and I always tell people, when that Uranus in the 6th house, maybe it shakes your shit up so much. And they're always like, fuck, man, why can't it just be like calm? And you know, I'm like, it ain't for you. Because when you do have calm, you'll be bored and end up making that same mess yourself. With Neptune in the 6th house, you also can sometimes have a problem with learning how to sort of adjust. Meaning, Neptune in the 6th house, like, I intuitively know how to work. I intuitively know how to put things in a schedule. I intuitively know how to do this. And when something isn't intuitive to you, sometimes it's like it doesn't compute. Or sometimes you're like, what? That doesn't fit with my narrative. What? And sometimes you can kind of like misfire with that. So just be a little bit conscious of that sometimes you'll have a little bit of a hard time with a new concept to an old, already existing thing. Now, Pluto is transformation. It's like a small transformative thing wherever it's placed. Usually happens when it's younger. It's in your 4th house of home and family. So typically when we see a Pluto in the 4th house, it means that there was a very large, jarring change or rough situation with the family when they were younger. Definitely learned very valuable lesson with family when they were younger. It's usually pretty heavy and intense, but they end up growing from it. They end up learning, you know, a lot of lessons about, you know, what family is or what family can do, or, you know, what does it mean to make a family or be in a family or to feel a family or to feel protected or to feel safe or secure. Always the hard way, though. It's Pluto for you. It's always a rough placement. Now, North Node is your life path. And I know we talked about this a lot, and here it is. Your North Node is in Libra. I got news for you, okay? I understand you want to be self-sufficient, independent, work hard, and achieve. But last life, you were Aries North Node, which means you were a leader, you did things on your own, and everyone followed you. This life, yes, you're still going to be boss or a bossy person. You still are going to be in charge because you still have Mars and Aries. So part of that is still left over in this lifetime. You didn't want to let go of it. You still have a Leo ascendant, which means you are going to be seen as like a figurehead or as someone that everyone likes, whatever. Cool, that's great. Love it. But when your North Node is in Libra, you need to challenge yourself more this lifetime. This lifetime, you have to learn how to share. You have to learn how to be a team player. You need to learn what teamwork means. Because if you isolate and push everyone away and just do everything on your own, independent, sort of bold, brave, whatever, you're going to hit a wall. Because this lifetime, you know what your challenge is? Helping others, being with others, harmonious, being balanced, balancing personal life and professional life, not being top heavy. Working together, being in relationships, being in partnerships, connecting with other people, working together, making deals with other people. You can't ignore, other people. Charity is very important with Northern Libra. It's very important to understand that you have to help others and be connected to others and do things with others, okay? It can't just all be about you. That's easy. You did that last life. This life, this is the challenge. Okay, and I've seen Northern and Libra manifest a lot of ways. For Libra, Libra's all about beauty too. So it's beauty, justice, things like that. So, on top of that, in terms of like what they want to do with their life, whatever it is, they just need to make sure that they're fair, equal, balanced, and have teamwork. But, I've seen Northern Libra manifest a lot of ways. Some of them go into law, okay? Some of them go into private investigation. Some of them go into any beauty-related industry, modeling or art, okay? Or, fashion or interior design. Some of them go into, listen, you can go into anything you want. I've seen Northern Libra be in a place where they're working, in computers, but in their position, in their role, they're able to mediate or connect certain groups, or they're able to be someone who goes between multiple people. Like, whatever the case may be, remember that you're still Libra North Node, so it's all about the scales, and it's all about making sure you have this and that, and you can connect. So just know that for you, it's very, very fucking important to remember that teamwork is literally your major overarching goal, and you can run from this all you want, but you'll hit it head on, okay? For instance, I have a North Node in Capricorn, so that means that my South Node is in Cancer, which means that in a past life I was nurturing and probably helped the family, maybe even a stay-at-home person, and this life I had to learn to provide and sort of be goal-oriented and be the provider rather than the nurturer. And so the first half of my life I spent nurturing other people until I finally learned I needed to provide. So for you, you're going to be very independent. You're going to want to do everything on your own until you learn that you need to be working with other people. And the more you work with other people, the faster you'll actually rise. Once you learn, you can help other people and they can help you, and I scratch your back, you scratch mine, you're going to rise so far. Now, your North Node is sitting in the second house. So you do need to be earning, okay? Listen, it's okay for you to focus on numbers sometimes with North Node in the second house, because second house is self-worth and income, and it's very important for you to understand that you need to make money. You're learning the value of the dollar, okay? You're learning the value of money, what money can do, money can provide, money can earn, money can destroy, money can create, money can do a lot of things, and you're learning all those lessons this lifetime. So don't be afraid to chase money. Just don't make it your overarching goal. Remember, what you do with that money is very important. You can't chase the money and sit on it. Make sure you understand that there needs to be more to life than just gaining the money. How you spend it and spending it in a way that helps other people is definitely very important. I'd be shocked if you didn't at least do something charitable towards, when you're older, like create a charity or create an organization or something, or do something like that. I would be shocked if you didn't. Last few things I will tell you is you have a 7th house Aquarius, which means your partner will be very, 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 very quirky. Sometimes these people have a habit of dating people who are not as attractive as them, but it's more along the lines of, I want someone who stands out from the crowd, but not like from me. Someone who is different, someone who's unique, but someone who's not, a threat in terms of like vying for the spot. It's hard to explain, but you should know what I'm talking about. 8th house Pisces, when it comes to sex, these people become your fantasy. They're very fantasy oriented, and they want to sell and be sold to fantasy, so they become what their partner needs. And your 10th house Taurus, again, don't be afraid to chase money, but just know Taurus midheaven in terms of career is slow and steady wins the race. Okay, it's very slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so their trajectory is never going to be like this, and they're also never going to fall down. It's going to be very consistent. Okay. Also, for career, Taurus just needs stability. So anything that allows them to, work hard, be themselves, have moments where they can be really on, but also moments where they're really off, and something that gives them the freedom to make and generate money even when they're not there. That's the key. Again, I could give you a list of things just like I did with North and Libra in terms of what a lot of people with Taurus midheaven go into in terms of career. But ultimately, it really doesn't fucking matter because you can choose whatever you want. And I don't want to put any whatever. Anyways, also with midheaven and Taurus, sometimes your midheaven is a little bit of your online persona, and midheaven Taurus can sometimes come across as someone who's a show-off, just because like they'll show off all the nice things they have, all the nice stuff that they have, you know, the items or the wonderful places they go to. So just be careful, because sometimes that could come across negatively if you know, if it's not done in the best way. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, let me know, and thank you so much for purchasing a chart reading.